Hello, dance teachers, dancers, and lovers of all things dance. Miss Shauna here today to talk about a couple important things to consider when picking costumes for your dancers. Okay, so it is costume picking season. If you haven't done that yet, usually around this time, at my studio anyways, we are in crunch time of getting costumes ordered from different costume companies. We order a lot from the States or outside of our province in Canada. Thankfully, let's talk about this for a second because the Canadian dollar is a little wonky right now. So I'm so grateful that there's so many great Canadian options for costume suppliers these days. So regardless of where you're ordering your costumes from, whether you order them from a regular clothing retailer or a specialty costume catalog, it is that time of year. Now, today I'm going to deviate from the regular of like absolutely you want your costume to suit your dance, right? If you're doing the song, when I say costume and your props, like all of it should kind of come together. But if you're using the song, for example, 99 red balloons, you're not going to use a bunch of green balloons. It doesn't make sense, right? If you're doing a really, dark or serious or sad dance, you're not going to have your dancers decked out in fluorescent pink leopard print. Like it just doesn't make sense, right? You want your costume to suit the theme of your dance. You want it to enhance their look on stage. You want to keep things cohesive amongst your dancers, amongst your team. And I think that kind of goes without saying, right? As a dance teacher, that just goes without saying. We want a costume that suits the dance. Today, what we're going to talk about, though, kind of goes beyond what matches the dance and falls into what I think I'm guilty of, for sure, in my career. I've been guilty of it, and I see people be guilty of it all the time, is picking costumes because it's something you love or something you would have liked to have worn, when really you needed to pause for a minute and think about a costume that was going to work for your dancers. So I have a line that I like to use, and maybe it sounds sometimes a little bit harsh, but it's not intended to be, right? It is just meant to be as clearly as it's stated. Your costuming, once you know that the costume suits the dance, the costume should be about them, not you. So as a dance teacher, like hands up, I already said I'm kind of guilty of this, but hands up high if you've opened those catalogs and you're like, oh my gosh, I wish I had worn this costume when I was, 9 years old in ballet. I would have loved it, right? And it's like pink and super lacy and so cute, but you have an entire class. I mean, this has never happened in my history, but like it could happen. But you have an entire class of 9-year-old ballet dancers who have expressly told you they hate pink. They hate pink. Any other color but pink they're in for. But you love that pink one. So you get it anyways because you would have loved to have worn it. And then you get costumes in and your dancers all go, oh, pink, right? Because you didn't pause to think about what works for your dancers. But there's other things to consider, right? So the first thing I'm going to preface before we dive into some things to consider, first thing I'm going to preface this with is you do have to like the costume you choose. As a teacher, you have to be 100% okay with the costume that you choose for your dancers, whether they're performing, at a community performance for the holidays or for their recital or for competition season, whatever it is, you have to love it as much as they do. But in choosing it, you need to remember it is about them. And what are some things that we can do to make sure it stays about them? Let's talk about that. First of all, let's consider, and when we go through all of these, let's just preface or let us assume that all of the costumes you've kind of put on your list of like, yes, I like these ones, they do all match the dance. We don't have to go back and say, well, none of these are going to match the theme or the style or anything like that, right? So you've narrowed it down to a handful of costumes that match your dance perfectly, right? So it's 99 red balloons. You're not doing anything with a bunch of green. You're not using, like I said, the fluorescent pink leopard for a dark lyrical dance. Okay, good. We've narrowed it down. But how can we make sure that these costume selections for you stays about your dancer, stays dancer centric, while still fulfilling its duty as a dance costume, right? One thing, step one. What are your dancers' body types? Because not every body is the same. That doesn't mean that there's a certain dancer body. I'm going to just lay that out there right there. Every body can dance. Come at me, debate that. I don't care. Everybody can dance. And I don't think the debate is as big as we think it is. It might have been many, many years ago, but everybody can dance. That doesn't mean you're not going to have a class where you have someone who is 5'9" and someone who is 5'2". The costume on your 5'9" dancer and your 5'2" dancer is going to look different. Not bad on one or the other, different, right? Or if you have a very lean musculature, lean, a very elegant dancer versus maybe someone who's a bit more muscular, powerful, dynamic, right? We know the different types of body types, both beautiful bodies and can do amazing things in dance. A costume will sit differently on different body types. So I think of things like a long skirt, right? If you've got a long skirt, but the skirt length is the same, for a size small, you buy a size small. And if you've ever measured costumes, you know you're measuring stuff like girth and different things like that. You could have, I'll use that 5'9" dancer as an example again. You could have a 5'9" dancer whose girth puts them in a size small, but they are all leg. And now instead of, if this was your leg, instead of the skirt hitting at the ankle for that dancer, it's hitting mid-calf. So now are we okay with it hitting in different places? Are we going to have to cut the skirt or hem the skirt for all the other dancers? Do we want it extra long? What are we looking with, right? What are we working with? What are we looking for? The other thing too is just different body builds. How is something going to fit and what is going to be the most flattering on every dancer, right? Not just what you want to wear or what your front and center, I don't really have front and center, but what your front and center dancer is going to look good in. What is going to flatter everybody? Because there are certain cuts of a costume or styles of costume that really will flatter everybody in a dance. So thinking about your dancers' body types and not saying one is better than the other or one is right or wrong, but acknowledging that everybody in your dance has a purpose in that dance and is valued in that dance, and that costume should enhance their role just as much as the person next to them. So let's think about that. Let's consider that, right? Thinking about body type and the physical aspect of thing, but this goes a little bit differently. How does it feel on their body, right? So like if I had $1 every time I had a dancer say, we want like a sparkly dance, like a sparkly costume, but not like the itchy sequins. And I'm like, well, we really will not know if they're itchy until it's in our hands and you put it on and you try to wear it. So I can't guarantee that, right? But the deal that I have with them is if they have those itchy costumes, we don't put them on, we don't wear them for long periods of time. They can half wear them. Like if you're a dancer, you kind of roll the top down and you put your warm up over top of it. And then when it's time to go on, you kind of like sneak back into it, right? So I always have deals with them about how to make it more comfortable. But how does it feel? Is it itchy? Is it heavy? Is it hot? Right? I remember I had a group, and now these dancers are much older, and one of them teaches for me, and when she picks costumes, she actually will like not pick a certain type of costume because she wore it once, and it was a certain material, and it was like a sleeved costume. It was like a 3/4 sleeve, and they felt when they wore it like they just built up so much body heat in this costume, and they were not, I mean, I hung out with them at competition for hours and they did not smell, but they felt like they were just so much body heat and sweat was happening that they were gross and disgusting in this costume, and they just wanted to walk around like this to try to like air themselves out. And to this day, she's like, that was so uncomfortable, and she won't pick costumes like that, right? Because there was discomfort physically. When we're talking about comfort level though, let's go to kind of tip number 3 or thought number 3 that you can consider is the emotional comfort level of your dancers. So we work in the dance world, unless you're only working with adult professional dancers, for the most part, dance educators, dance teachers, we are working with young people, tiny little humans who want to be a ballerina or want to be just a dancer, who want to be with their friends, and they want to just have some fun and maybe learn a thing or two as they go. So maybe when they're little, they're just like, they want sequins and a tutu and they don't really care. As they hit that prepubescent age, this is where I find this to be the most, I guess the where I'm most conscious of this is in that kind of, that, like, I would say like that 10 to 13 age range, right? As the body is changing, the emotional comfort level in some costumes, right? Too form-fitting or too revealing, straps that they can't properly adjust, something that maybe comes too low cut, something that maybe shows the midriff. They don't feel emotionally comfortable in it. Maybe it looks great, but maybe you could find like a comparable costume that doesn't make them feel emotionally just wrong in their costume, right? They haven't adjusted to their body changes or their hormonal changes or anything like that. And now they're like feeling so off in this costume, right? I had in the past a dancer who was of that age range, and her body was changing. And like, listen, young dancers, female or male, your body goes through changes as you grow. Young people regardless, but like young women in general, our body will change significantly as we kind of hit those ages, and we don't always know what to do with it at that point, right? And so you just have to be mindful and give your dancers grace. If they're not comfortable with a thin strap, low cut, you can get if you're still looking for sleeveless, for example, for a bodysuit, you can get a really nice, like, well, just like this, right? Just like shoulder, I don't even know the cut called, but get a nice high neck for that elegant high neck keyhole back. There's so many things you could do to make that bodysuit or that finish of the costume look really, really nice while making the dancer feel comfortable, right? If they're getting to the age where they have to start wearing certain undergarments and they don't know how to make it all work, let's work with the emotional well-being of those dancers so we can help them ease in to those physical body changes and not mess with their mental state, right? We want to make sure they feel physically and emotionally great in their costume. Also, I think it's really important on both of those topics. I think this gets lost sometimes because we live in this like perfectly filtered world where we scroll the internet constantly. We're in that scroll hole and we're seeing all these things from television, and it's meant to be, or television, or just like reels or TikToks that are meant to glamorize things. It's meant to be bigger and extra, larger than life. And we lose the modesty sometimes when we see these like crazy two-piece costumes, everything's like super flashy, and we forget that we are working with kids and modesty is still a thing. Modesty is okay. And I'm going to tell you this much. If you're a dancer who's like, no, but I really do think my dancers will score higher if the judge can see their abs in their jazz dance. As a judge, I'm not judging your dancer on their abs. Full stop. I'm not judging them on their abs. And I'm not judging them on if I can see their abs through their costume, right? But what I am going to judge is if you put this tiny little dancer in a two-piece outfit that is uncomfortable on them and that rides in weird ways because it doesn't work for them. And I can tell watching them for their whole 2-minute solo that they just want to pull on their costume. I'm going to feel that one a little bit deeper, right? I can feel the discomfort. So just because something on TV or on Instagram or TikTok looks trendy, modesty is still of value, right? There's still value in keeping your dancers' costumes a little more modest, letting it enhance their dance, and not distract from it. When I say not distract from it, I have actually been in audiences watching, thank God not my dances because I would have been devastated, but watching dances where everybody in the audience knew the age range of these children on stage, and the costumes that were being worn were maybe a little too revealing, maybe a little too mature for them. Maybe even the theme of the dance was a bit mature, but that's open for debate. It is art, right? We've talked about that. But where I've been into the audience near parents, and specifically fathers who are watching these young women dancing, who have looked away and made the comment that they felt uncomfortable watching children like that. So modesty goes a long way. And, even when you're thinking of things like, oh, well, I want a nice, clean leg line, so we're not going to wear tights. I'm not, and maybe there's certain judges who will. I'm going to tell you this right now as a judge. If you're in a lyrical dance and you put your dancer in footless tights and the tights end here, and I can see the end of the tight line before I see the foot, I can still do my job and not be distracted by this tight line, right? When I'm looking at 10-year-olds who don't have the tights on, for example, and their bodysuit is going up their butt, and I'm like, we could have really slowed that wedgie from happening if we just put some beige tights on. It would have been great. It would have been so good, right? So we want to make sure that we are protecting the modesty of our dancers a little bit and letting them just really come and shine, right? Every dancer wants a bodysuit or a costume that fits, and no dancer wants one that's riding up her butt the whole time, right? Same thing with straps. You don't want straps that are falling down or things that you feel like you want to pull up. So making sure that the fit and the cut and all of those things really make them feel good and don't take away from the dancing or distract from the dancing. And I also think, just in that regard, as an audience member, as a teacher, and as a judge, as a dance judge, I don't want to be so distracted by your costume that I can't see you dance. Like, I don't, and I'm like, okay, I love Swarovski. Love Swarovski. It is probably one of my favorite jewelry lines. I am obsessed with all the sparkle and the glitter, and I cannot walk past a Swarovski store without going in. I must go in, just like a magnet. So before Swarovski's like, oh, we're never going to talk to this girl, I want everybody to know I love Swarovski. I do not care, though. Do not care how many Swarovski crystals are on your costume. If you're thinking you can extra Swarovski up that crystal to blind me from a sickled foot or a turned in leg, I don't care how many Swarovski crystals are on that costume, right? Bling is bling. Bling is bling, and bling is cool. But I don't want your costume to take away from your dance. In fact, I want it to enhance your dance, right? And I always I jokingly say this because I don't actually think I would ever do this as a teacher, but I always have said, like, when I'm judging, if there is a group that comes on with the full extra blinged, extra glam, like I know they spent like $500 on this costume, and the next group, and they all look great, and the next group comes on and they're all in black bodysuit, black leggings, but everything is uniform. Hair is uniform, makeup is uniform, black, looking good. They're all starting on the same level playing field with me. I'm looking for a costume that is uniform, that brings them together, that allows them to highlight their dance. And so at the end of the day, we want to make sure that that is the priority and that dancing is what is being highlighted, right? Also, just like a thought on any of that, when you are working with little ones, at making sure there's not too many accessories for your little guys. Like, I remember years and years and years ago, there was this really adorable, super cute, loved it, Moana themed costume. And it was for like children, kind of like 5-year-olds, except for it had wristbands, armbands, headpieces, ankle pieces, and the costume. Their tights, their shoes. There were a lot of moving parts. I'm pretty sure by the end of picture day, we lost half the pieces because these kids couldn't, like, there were so many items. And for the parents, they're like, I don't know where everything goes. Maybe ease of use is a thing. If you have dancers also have a lot of quick changes, ease of quick change might be something to consider as well. Are there a ton of clasps? Are there tie-ups? Are these all these things? And they have, X number of dances that they're in, and throughout the year they're going to have quick changes. Maybe ease of quick change is a thought too. So those are some things I like to consider beyond, is the costume just right for the dance? I want to make sure the costume is right for the dancer. It's not about me. God knows I can open a costume catalog and want every costume in that book. In fact, there's been times where I've ordered, if it's like separates and there's certain pieces that like they're good for a costume, but I'm like, man, I could also wear those. Like, I got these pants for a duo last year, and they were super cute, like wide leg pants, but I was like, how could I wear this? I bought myself a pair. Bought myself a pair, and my dancers have since reused those pants also. And like, we sometimes show up wearing the same pants. It's amazing. But I mean, listen, there are costumes you're going to want, but at the end of the day, you have to put your emotion aside. It's not about you. You're not performing in it. Your dancers are, and you want to make sure that it fits their body. It physically feels good on their body. It emotionally feels good for them. You're protecting their modesty, keeping it appropriate, and you're giving them that ease of wear. Also, just a couple, like 2 little thoughts before we wrap it up for today is I don't let my dancers pick their costumes until they are of the age where they can physically hand me their own hard-earned money to pay for it, right? So my parents have trusted in me, my dance parents have trusted in me that I will pick an appropriate costume for their child. I come from a dance studio, like I've created a dance culture where we do believe in protecting the modesty of the children. And so my dance moms and dads, grandmas, aunts, everybody know that, like, if your 10-year-old is not going to be in a ton of revealing outfits. But I have had dancers where once they turned 18, they're like, yeah, no, I want this 2-piece where you can see my stuff. And I'm like, listen, at 8, you're working, you pay for your own dance class, you're driving yourself to dance, like you want that costume, you pick that, right? And I am okay with them doing that. So until they're of the age to really do it themselves, I don't let them pick, but I do let them weigh in. So I go back to like where we started today. If you have a group of kids who are like absolutely not pink, and you can take that to heart because they really don't want pink, right? They're not going to be happy with their costume. So you can say to them, like, is there a certain color or style you really hope you'll get to use this year, right? Do you want a skirt, or do you want pants, or do you want a long skirt or a short skirt, or like a hairpiece, a hat? Like, what are you thinking, right? What do you visualize for yourself? And narrow it down to, if like, I say narrow it down to like 2 or 3. Sometimes you can get to that one where you know your dancers so well, you're like, that's it. And you show it to them and they're like, yes, I love it, right? But if you're not certain on one, narrow it down to, 2 or 3 that you know you're okay with, that you know, check all those boxes of the things that we talked about to keep it dancer centric, and then present it to your dancers, right? Dancers don't always know when they look at the book or when they look at their favorite influencers. They just think, you've got this like 12-year-old dancer, and they think they're going to look exactly the same way as the 28-year-old professional dancer who's got like the features on Instagram. Well, no, they're not. And not in a bad way, but it's just not going to look how they think it's going to. But you, as the adult in the room, can look in that book and go, okay, this is going to make them look and feel great, right? Narrow it down to those ones, and then you can let them weigh in from there. Also, again, just because there is a costume you really like doesn't mean it's going to work for your dance or your dancers. And you just need to, before you even open that costume catalog, if you're just sitting there getting ready, just remind yourself, have a little moment with yourself and say, this costume is not about me, it's about them. And then begin your amazing search. So, here's the thing. Picking costumes can be tough. I've been doing it for more years than I want to. And as the studio owner, I reserve at my studio final say in what every costume is, because I will sit there and go, wait a minute, I know this dancer has straight up said to me that fit makes her uncomfortable, so we're not going to use it for this class, because maybe she didn't tell you, but she has told 2 other teachers, so we're going to pick something different, right? I reserve the right to veto or add or adjust anything. It comes with a very open discussion with the teacher who's picked it, so it's like a nice safe space. But I do approve every single costume that our teachers put out there, and I have nixed. Is that what the word is? Like, no, I've knowed. There's the yay or nay. I've made many a costume in the past just for inappropriateness, but it can be tough, right? I don't just have to pick for my own 14 dances that I do. I have to pick for every dance that's coming out of my studio. In theory, I have to be okay with them. So I know it can be challenging. It can be tough. It can be full of its own craziness. But if you can keep your focus dancer centered, and find a way to tie it all in to a dance so that it can enhance your performance or add to that performance, not take over, not distract, and in the end, just really help amplify all of your dancers' performance in that dance and really elevate their confidence in themselves as dancers and their ability to perform. Like, then you have done it, right? You've empowered them, you've strengthened them, and you've taken their performance to the next level without taking anything else away. It's about adding, right? The costume just adds. So, what are your thoughts? I mean, I always want to know your thoughts. I always like to tell me your thoughts. Maybe you disagree with me. Maybe you're like, no, my dancers are going to wear whatever I tell them to wear, whether they're comfortable with it or not. Okay, we vary on that. We differ on that thought, and that's okay. This is where I sit. This is things that I found have worked over the past multiple decades. 40, I'm not doing me do the math, but it's been many, many years. It's been over 20 years of teaching and like learning from my own errors and my own mistakes. And so that's why I want to share these with you guys here on this YouTube page. So whatever your thoughts are on costuming, maybe you hate it, maybe it frustrates you, maybe you wish someone else would just pick your costumes for you. I hear you. I do too, right? But at the end of the day, it is something that falls into our laps. So we want to make sure that we're doing it right and we're doing it in a way that makes our dancers feel amazing. So good luck with costume picking season, however or wherever you order them from. If you are Canadian and the Canadian dollar makes you scared, me too, because it does make it hard to order from other companies outside of Canada, but there are so many amazing choices in Canada. So let's make the most of it and let's get our dancers some amazing costumes for the coming performance season. Anyways, that's all I've got for you today. Until next time, keep on dancing, keep on shining, and I will see you soon.